Hey, this is the Hear Me, Follow Him podcast. Once again, the Hear Me, but Follow Him podcast. My name is Damala Asafa. Man, it's been a while, been a couple weeks, man. You know how life gets. This May, it just seems like it's been very, very busy. Been raising my little daughter. That's been really cool. She's hitting those little milestones, like smiling and all that good stuff. You have graduation, you have vacations, you have staycations, occupations, invade the nation in Israel. It's just all types of stuff has been going down this May, but haven't been able to get on here and record, but I'm glad to be able to be back on here. The last episode was about Gideon. He was one of the judges, Gideon, and he also had a name called Jerubbaal. It's always cool in the Bible. Like if you do something real significant, you always have two names, like Abraham, Sarah, Sarai. Same thing with Gideon. He was also known as Jerubbaal, but he's the one who took the 300 men, freed Israel from the hands of the Midians, and they asked him to be king, just to paraphrase the last episode. And he told them, no, I will not be your kings. Either will my sons or my grandsons. You have a king, and that is God. But no sooner than he dies, I'm going to call him Jerubbaal. I'm going to call him Gideon for simple sakes. No sooner than Gideon dies, the people forget already and turn their back on everything that he says. And this thing is a game of the generations. Like the Bible really is like this to me. And it's today like that in today's time. It's a story of generations. Some generations take heed to the lessons of the past generations, which is given to us in the Bible and history. And other generations just act like nothing ever happened and things are doomed to repeat itself. For instance, there's been these riots, right, all over college campuses. And I remember reading this in the history books and now talking to some of my teachers who were actually alive and in school at this time. There was a shooting over student riots in 1970 at Kent State in Ohio, right, over protest of the Vietnam War. So they're seeing history repeat itself as we're having these protests across college campuses for the Palestinian-Israel war. But some of the people in our generations, they don't remember that and don't even know nothing about that. So they're forging together, not learning. They're forging ahead on a path they think is brand new, while others in our older generation are like, man, it's on repeat. And so it is really from the Bible generations to this generation. Like we will take heed to learn some of the things from the past. And that's why I like going over the Old Testament, because the Old Testament flows into the New Testament, which flows into today, talking about our generation. And I ain't trying to cite the Beatles, but it just came in mind that talking about my generation. And that's what it is. Our generation now, we sit on a precipice of listening and learning from our older generation. Some things I guess you got to get rid of because they're not doing it right. But we also have to teach the up and coming generation because they're looking up to us. But so we do have that with Gideon. And he ends up with 70 kids. Like, that's one thing about these Old Testament dudes, man. They have some families. He has 70 kids, 70 sons. All of these people are heir, basically, to the throne if Gideon wanted to be king. And he told them, no, the Lord will be your king. But out of these 70 kids, we'll call that weird in today's world, in today's society, especially in Western culture, but all over the world, there are different cultures where there's multiple wives. And even here in Utah, right, we watch the show Sister Wives. Like that thing is still commonplace today, but so it was. But you married the women. And I guess you made them honorable women. They all lived together and they had all of your kids, and that's all part of the family. But they will also have something called concubines, which is basically like a slave girl or a girlfriend or a side chick, if you want to use today's words, in a different town. So Gideon had this side chick in a town called Shechem, and he had a son with this side chick called Abimalech. So basically he's a bastard, and I'm using the word bastard in the terms that would have used it in historically, which just meant that you were born out of wedlock. You were a child without married parents. There's a lot of bastards today, but we use that word more in a more derogatory way today. So you can't just call somebody a bastard, but technically not married, have children, you're a bastard. Abimelech is a bastard, the half brother of all these other ones who Gideon married, because he had several wives and they lived in the house. So Gideon dies, and quickly, man, they turn away from God. The same God that Gideon has showed them, like, hey, with 300 men, I could free you from the Midian. You follow that, you'll be in peace. It says no sooner than he died, they quickly fell back. The next generation forgot and wanted to, hey, maybe we should go for that king again. And that's where the 70 sons and Abimelech came in. Now, Abimelech lived in a different town. He lived in a town called Shechem, with his mom being the half brother. The other 70 sons, they lived in, I think it's a town called Oprah, but I might be wrong about that. You can check that out in the book of Judges, chapter 8. But they lived in a town together. But Abimelech is like, hey, man, I've got the king's blood in me, and you guys want a ruler, you want a king, you know what, I could be that. So like he gathered up some support, and everybody's like, yeah, we want a king, because they asked Gideon and he said, no, let the Lord be your king, but they still wanted one. And here's Abimelech stepping up. So they gave Abimelech some money. He hired some people. So he's got a squad with him now, the entourage, the army. He goes over there to his 70 brothers, kills them all. Boom, 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 boom. On one stone is how scripture says it in the book of Judges. Kills all 70 of them on one stone. So the bastard boy is now primed to be king. Now, one young boy escapes. His name is Jotham, and he runs off into the mountain. So the bloodline of Gideon is not completely gone. But as of now, you would think, boom, they're all gone, because he slaughters them all. And they mess around and they make Abimelech king, the first unofficial king of Israel. But he's really just the king of like 2 cities, Shechem, where his mom was from, where he was born, and another town called Beth Millo. All the people got together and was like, yeah, Abimelech, he is the blood of Gideon. Let us make him king. But just pause for a second, like, and think from Abimelech's point of view. Like, put on your glasses and you're going to be Abimelech. So they treat you like a bastard, like an outsider. You're looking at your other 70 brothers and they're heralded as kings because they're the bloodline of Gideon. But so are you in a different town, but they're not going to acknowledge you. So he had a plan, and he took power. How was he going to take power? No different than people try to take power today. He killed and he murdered to get that power. And it worked. They made him king. He went from a bastard half-blood to king because he slaughtered all of his brothers. We do that in today's world, man. We launch wars. Like, we act ignorant to the things that we do today and look at them like savages. But open up your eyes and think, has it been any different from 1776? Ask from a Native American's point of view. Ask what's going on all over the world now as people are trying to take land and annex, and World War II, just all of the wars in general, splitting of the Koreans. Like, we do the same stuff today, so that's what's happening now. But Abimelech is king off murder. And God doesn't like that, because he's watching us like, man, look at what my people do. So Jotham, that one little son, like, he climbs up on a mountain and like lets them know, hey, I'm alive. And he says a lot of stuff to them, but he curses them and says this. He's like, look, if you guys have done right by Gideon's family, this generation, like you think, then go ahead. Let Abimelech be your king and let that be your joy. And Abimelech, that's your joy, the people that you're king over. But if not, let y'all be cursed and let y'all be against each other. And God let Abimelech, it actually calls him the king of Israel, even though he is the king of just 2 towns to me. But it calls him the king of Israel for 3 years. I guess everything went solid for three years. And then God sent the evil spirit down on the people, the citizens of Shechem, and also Abimelech, so he could pay for the murder of his brothers. Let me take a drink here. Man, I hope that's a good paraphrase. I start paraphrasing, I feel like it gets into just over detail, but I like to paint a picture, and if it's painting a picture in your head, perfect. But so let me go on to this and say, like, it's crazy, right? That's what the extent that people would do to take power. But he is the king and he is his people. But now it's gaining power like that. How God is going to make him pay is by turning them against each other. Basically, it's an all-out civil war. People are moving in and out of town and rumbling that they don't like Abimelech and the way that he's ruling. If he sends a caravan down the trail, they're robbing him and kind of underhanding their own king. And their king is seeing this, and he got power by killing, so that's the only way he knows to maintain power. He's coming to kill his own people. No different than what's happening in Sudan. You might not see that on the news, but the civil war in Sudan, I mean, you don't even want to see the images of it. The one that I know that they did publicize in the news recently was the civil war in Syria. Like, I don't even know if that's going on, but Bashar Assad over there in Syria, like 2012, he was bombing his own people indiscriminately. So, I mean, the same civil wars that's going down here in today's world is the same thing that God uses to end Abimelech's reign. So you could get power in some ill-conceived ways. Like, the way that you attain power is more important than the power that you attain. And there's a correct and just way too that you can rise to power, because power itself is not bad. It's just what you would do to attain it. Just like it doesn't really say money is bad. Money is a tool. A hammer is a tool. A light is a tool. Money is a tool. They had denarii back in the day that they used to exchange that tool for food, tithes, offering, things of that nature. The said love of money is what starts to make your paths super crooked, and Lord knows where you would end up. But after all that, Abimelech is going in a civil war with his own people, and this is how he dies to wrap up Abimelech's life. He dies by going too close to a tower. So he's killing the people. He's taking towers down, burning down whole cities. Like, how dare y'all go against me? I'm your king. But he gets too close to a tower when he's getting ready to burn down the second one, just like he did the first. And a woman took a stone from the top, whoop, dropped it out of a window, smacked him in the head. And he didn't want to get killed, or he didn't want somebody to come down and let it be known a woman killed him. So he had his armor bearer stab him. So officially it went, I don't know why that was so important to him when they were dying back in the Old Testament, but Saul did the same thing. Like, he begged for his own people to kill him so the other people can't say, hey, we put our sword in him and killed him. But his armor bearer did, and that's how Abimelech died. Abimelech was also cited by King David, because it was some shady stuff that King David did. But in order to get Uriah the Hittite killed, he told Joab, put that man in the front where they're fighting. And so he had them go all the way up close to the wall, and Uriah the Hittite and a lot of other men died. And so King David even cited it, like, come on, guys, don't y'all remember Abimelech? What are y'all doing fighting, going close to the wall? But it was really because King David was shady, and he wanted Uriah the Hittite dead. And that was what Joab did to have him die in battle, was have him move up to the front, just like Abimelech. I think that's in 2 Samuel. I'm gonna look up the chapter and a verse for that where King David actually cites that. 2 Samuel 11, I believe, but I'll get that up there. But anywho, man, it just goes to show you, man, like power is a thing, and forgetting what the older generation does is a thing. They live life, and they have experiences. It's written down in history for a reason, because when a generation forgets, you just tend to you do the same thing over and over and over. Because as the book of Ecclesiastes says, there's really nothing new under the sun. That generation has been wanting a king, and they finally got one, a taste of a sample of what it is in Abimelech, and it does not end well. It does not end well at all. Later on, they will still beg for a king, because even though they have a God that leads them, this generation is still looking out to the other nations, just like they did when Gideon was alive, and they still want a king. But when you take power in an ill way, it ends in a very ill way. It's a lesson for us today, man. Slow and steady and faithful is the way to this life. Instead of the cut corners, scheming, just to make it to an end goal that you think will fulfill. Because we're more than just this flesh and this body. We're also a spirit, and you got to feed your spirit. And those things battle each other for their own wants and needs. But better is the way of the spirit, and better is the way of the Lord, than trying to seek things out for power and get so bloodthirsty behind it. Many people will say, man, that's not me, that's not me. But if you pay attention to society, it happens out here. Whether we're taking food straight out of your daughter's mouth because we want it, running up in your house, robberies, it's out here. God protect us, man. He does watch over his people. But don't think because you're safe and protected that it's not happening out there. even from our stars like Diddy. Everybody's getting exposed, right? Because everybody has these skeletons. But keep your integrity and keep your heart right and follow the one, right? And he will lead you into glory, empowered. It's unimaginable. It's unexplainable, right? You really can't put it into words if you truly believe, because as this body fades, the new comes to life, and the new is eternal. So these temporary things we cannot love these temporary things as much as we put our hope and faith in the eternal things. So yeah, they have their leader. We have our leaders again too. And I'm talking to our generation, man. Do not forget. Follow God and learn from the lessons of people like Abimelech, whether you were in the crowd wanting him to be king or you were doing whatever and will do whatever to become king. This is the Hear Me, Follow Him podcast. It's been a minute. I'm glad to get this episode out here. God bless you guys. Hit subscribe. I think next week I'm going to come back with a high school story and kind of wrap up that right there. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit subscribe. If you have, thank you very much. God bless you. Hear me, follow him.